Let's start with this row that's, well, I'd say brewing, but it's not brewing. It's absolutely erupted over the winter fuel payments. Would the Conservatives like to see those cuts completely reversed and every pensioner who had those payments taken away, get them back? Morning.
Morning. Yes, absolutely. That's the case. We voted against it in Parliament. When this was brought in, it was brought in completely out of the blue. It's totally unfair. People are expecting that payment over the winter. According to what we see at the moment, we're not even clear where those people are going to get that winter fuel payment this winter, next winter.
Right. But just to be clear, you want every single pensioner, including millionaires, to get those payments back?
Yeah, of course. That's the only way you can reverse those changes rapidly.
But Kemi Badenoch, sorry. Mr. Kemi Badenoch, your party leader, has come out this morning and said millionaires should not be getting the winter fuel payment. That is not right.
Yeah, and nobody disagrees with that.
But you just told me they should be.
No, many of those millionaires give that money away already to charity and other things. But what we need to do is look at the system and try and move to a system where you do have, for example, we're able to calculate income by household. That's what you need to do
I'm
to
really
be able to put in place that.
You've just said to me that, of course, everybody should get them back. Your party leader has openly said that millionaires shouldn't. She says that is not right. So you're saying something very different to your party leader.
That's not true. That's not true, Ben. You should listen to what the leader of the opposition said.
I did very closely. She said this. I'm quoting her directly. Millionaires should not get the winter fuel payment. That is not right. I've just asked you if you should, and you said yes, definitely.
No, I didn't. We're reversing it initially.
Yes.
So everybody gets it because it's the only way you can move to it to reverse those changes rapidly. Down the track, of course, you can look then about how you would do that practically so that there is a means testing at a much higher level than currently. At the moment, what the government's done is a means test at £11,500.
Right.
So a pensioner on £11,500, it will not get pension credit. You
would give them back to the millionaires and then maybe at some point down the line take them away again.
You're not clear about that.
What's the point of that?
Because I've just explained, that's the only way you can do it rapidly. It's really unfair. I got many of my constituents, about 20-odd thousand constituents, who this year have not had any winter fuel allowance. What is fair about that?
Because
the only way you can do it rapidly is to reverse it, as we voted to do in Parliament, is to reverse the winter fuel allowance.
And then at some point you would, if you were in government, you would take it away from the millionaires.
Yes, that's right.
Why did the Conservative Party for 14 years give huge amounts of taxpayers' money through winter fuel payments to millionaires for 14 years?
Well, it's not huge amounts. Let's be fair about this. The number of millionaire
many millions of pounds.
There's not many millionaire pensioners. Let's be realistic.
It's a quarter of pensioners live in millionaire households.
But the answer to your question is it's complicated to do. One thing you don't want to do is move to a system where it's more expensive to distribute the benefit than it is in terms of the benefit itself. That would be ludicrous. It's not easy to do that right now, but we need to look at ways of how you do that, but you need to do it at a household level. That's not the way currently you judge income. You do it on a personal level.
Okay.
So there are ways you could do it, but this is something we need to look at in time. And this is what Kemi has been very clear on. We don't want to jump to knee-jerk promises about simply giving, moving to a system that you cannot afford to deliver upon.
Let me ask, if I could, Ms. Hollinrake, about the two-child benefit cap. Also, lots of speculation about that this morning. You heard Angela Rayner there saying it's being considered but not committing to lifting it. What's the Conservative policy in that? Should the two-child benefit cap be lifted?
Well, that's not our policy, and it was brought in for good reason. Basically, it's at £3.5 billion a year cost to that. I've heard a number of commentators on this today, a number of politicians saying this is the best way to take people out of poverty. It is not. The best way, without doubt, and you can check this with the Resolution Foundation, which are a left-wing think tank, the best way to bring people out of poverty is to get people in a job, a better job.
But most of the people who claim child benefit are in jobs already.
Well, yes, and that's why we want those jobs to be better paying, which is why we increased the national living wage and got it to 2/3 of median income, some of the record increases for those people on national living wage.
But in the time you were in government, Mr. Hollinrake, the number of children pushed into relative poverty increased by 600,000.
Well, you're picking one statistic, Ben, which is...
It's a pretty damning one.
No, well, you look at absolute poverty.
You pushed 600,000 more children into poverty over 14 years.
Look at absolute poverty. It's a much better measure, a much more accurate measure.
There's 4 measures for child poverty. 3 of them show that it went up under the Conservatives. You're using the one that went down.
One thing we did in government, Ben, we got 4.2 million more people in work.
Yeah,
4.2.
but
And we
that's the
reduced
point
the
I'm
number
getting
of
to.
people. No,
But
you
the
asked me
number
a
of people
question.
in work and wages.
4.2 million more people in work,
Yes.
1.2 million fewer people unemployed. What happened since Labour took over?
No,
150,000 less people in work, fewer people in work.
Mr. Hollinrake, you're contradicting yourself because you're
No,
saying
no.
we put wages up, we got more people into work, and you're also saying that's the best way to lift child poverty. Whereas I'm pointing out to you that yes, you did those things, and at the same time, 600,000 more children were pushed into poverty. So it's not just
No,
about work, isn't it?
you're just taking one measure, and that's not the measure we use.
You
And
used
if you look,
the one of the
there's no,
four that showed that it
it is
went down
beyond
rather than up.
doubt. It is beyond any doubt. You look at any economist, any sensible think tank, and they will tell you the best way to get people out of poverty is so they can find a well-paid job. And we got the national living wage to record levels under our stewardship to two-thirds of median wage.
But this
that
is,
lifted many people out of poverty.
But this is something that could be done overnight, and at a stroke of a pen would lift 250,000 children out of poverty. You've come on this morning and you've said you would, at least in the short term, give millionaires back their winter fuel payments, but you wouldn't act to immediately lift 250,000 kids out of poverty.
Well, where's £3.5 billion a year coming from?
Well, some of it could come from not giving millionaires their winter fuel payments.
Well, very, very small amounts you gain from that, Ben. You've got to look at these things in the round. They've got to be looked at properly. And we will do that over the next 4 years. We'll have policies that I think our supporters will like and much of the public will like. But we'll always seek to balance the books. You will see all these promises coming from all the other parties that they can't afford. I mean, look at the promises that came from Labour. They got a fully costed, fully funded manifesto, and suddenly £76 billion of tax and spend has come from this party. We're not like that. We are sensible. We believe in sound money, looking at these things properly and making sure we can afford our spending commitments.
Why do you think you're going backwards under Kemi Badenoch? You're now down to 16% according to one opinion poll. You're in fourth place behind Labour Reform and the Lib Dems. You were meant to make progress in the last year, Mr. Hollinrake. You've gone backwards. Why?
We will make progress. Those measures are measures of where we've been rather than where we're going. So I believe Kemi is absolutely the right person to lead our party. But what she has said is she doesn't want any false promises. We don't want any promises that we can't deliver upon. We've made those mistakes in the past. We've got many things right in the last 14 years, but with some fundamental errors, particularly on migration. So we need to make sure we've got a properly researched set of policies that are deliverable on. Now, as those policies come out, I think people will realise that Kemi Badenoch is the kind of person who will bring forward proper Conservative policies.
You think she's doing a good job?
I think she's doing an excellent job. I worked for 18 months in the Department of Business and Trade as one of her ministers. And I'll tell you what with Kemi, she is strong, she's got courage, and she does what she says she's going to do. I think over time, people will recognise that. And if people want an indication of where we're going with some of our policies, look at the deportation bill, where every single foreign national who's committed a crime will be deported from this country. That's the kind of policy that Kemi will come through with.
I hear you. We're almost out of time. Let me just ask you one final thing, if I could, Mr. Hollinrake. It's a similar question that I asked Angela Rayner at the end there about the comments from Benjamin Netanyahu this week, seeming to link Western leaders, Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, to that appalling fatal shooting in Washington, D.C. You're a decent man, so I'm sure you'd want to condemn the accusation that our Prime Minister might have been in any way responsible for that event.
Well, I can't judge the motivation for somebody who's carried out that atrocious crime. I don't know what was in that person's mind. But I think we've got a responsibility to be moderate in our language because clearly Israel's facing an existential threat from Hamas, from Hezbollah, all sponsored by Iran.
Who do you think hasn't been moderate in their language here? Benjamin Netanyahu or Keir Starmer?
Well, I think that, I listened very carefully to David Lammy's statement to the House last week, and I was concerned about some of the things he said. He didn't seem to properly reflect the point that Israel is facing that existential crisis. And listen, I fully agree with the point that we need to make sure aid gets through to people in Gaza.
But you won't condemn those comments.
Can I just finish? You asked me a question.
Go on.
Aid gets through to people in Gaza, and Israel do everything they can to minimise the loss of civilian life.
So no condemnation, just finally, on
the
comments from Netanyahu, no condemnation.
No.